Alrighty. Well, Long War is out, and now I'm going to just continue modding. To be honest, for myself, I think it's I've been having some discussions with other people and stuff like that, and to be honest, it only crystallizes even further what it is that I want to do with Guerrilla War. It doesn't look a particularly great deal like Long War, or at least in final end result. So yeah, I'm not exactly in any sort of place to stop what I'm doing or anything like that. It's definitely not the mod apocalypse for me. I'm gonna keep on carrying on. Anyway, um, I'm at this point where I need to work out the economic model. I've figured out pathfinding, and I understand. Yeah, like pathfinding works and all that, but I need some sort of economic model to back how that all works. So, um, that economic model is about like you have like this concept of upkeep and upkeep penalties, and then you also have inputs for production, and like all of these drain away from inventory and stuff like that. It's all pretty basic stuff, but I need to represent it somehow. I had a couple of cracks at doing it. Like I thought, oh, I'll represent it in the template, like as these fixed things. But to be honest, I feel like in laying it out in this way, I've actually made it more constricting than it needs to be. Um, and I honestly feel like half the time, these templates, what I should actually be doing is instead of defining it in a template like this, I should be making it to a degree programmable. The one benefit of that is potentially then I can add event hooks so people can customize it a bit more. But also that way, like sort of I can go more sliding scale with stuff like upkeep and like be a bit more granular about it. So I'm sort of gonna go away from this, really complex uh, definition process. I mean, there'll still be variables that are held in config and that kind of thing, but this definition process for production capability and upkeep, I think I'm gonna try and avoid that, just because I don't think it necessarily works. Anyway, so this is going to be sort of an exploration where I just try and figure out what the hell I'm doing with this code and how I'm going to manage this sort of thing. Because at the moment we have like it's super like all of this stuff gets abstracted away. So now all we have is a struct with this next upkeep tick, next production tick, build hours remaining type, and that kind of stuff. And that's okay, but it doesn't really sort of source the kind of information we need. Like once you end up into upkeep penalty, then what kind of things go wrong? Can you have more than one type of upkeep? If you miss, say for a city, you have food requirements, and then you have ammunition requirements, and there are different penalties based on which one occurs. So I feel at a certain point, trying to make a data structure like this ends up just a little too loose. So yeah, I'm already going to be using. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to use delegates and stuff like that to do it. So essentially, use delegates to build out the information. So that way, it can be to a degree conditional. And that way, like the templates can do what they need to do. But yeah, like I want to store. Yeah, I'm still gonna like add per object config and stuff like that. But I want to use templates. I think for a lot of what I'm gonna do, just to make it work. So I think that's the thing. And to a degree, I'm just gonna have a look around the other like the base code base as well, and just sort of see what's around in sort of examples and that kind of thing. The ability template, there's obviously lots of ability templates that follow that sort of pattern. So we have a bunch of abilities, and they throw in a bunch of delegates as well. yeah, so stuff like this is, I think, where I'm going to be heading. Build new game state delegate. And I just got to remember how this delegate business works. Yeah, so you just declare the type down there, declare the function signature, and you're all good to go. So yeah, we're going to go for something like that. And I think that'll make the most sense. It'll give us the most flexibility, and we'll still have some level of conflict. But I just don't. Yeah, I don't want to get too. What's the word? Get too caught up in all of these details when I'm trying to make the perfect abstraction. I think I won't never actually manage to do it. So I'd rather have just attach delegates like calculate ideal inventory capacity, and then it takes all the structures and says, oh yeah, your inventory capacity is this, that kind of thing. Anyway, so because that would mean that we'd get rid of things like base inventory capacity, base unit capacity. I want all of this stuff to be to a degree conditional, so it just doesn't help me if it's there. It just sort of holds me back. That said, though, rather than running the delegates every time we need the information, we will probably cache it to some degree on the strategy asset. So this one on the left here is the strategy asset. So at the moment, we've got this asset search node for searching through. That's more of a utility thing more than anything, so I might put it up the top. Yeah, RoboJumper. That's pretty much what I'm thinking. So calculate current capacity, calculate current squad capacity, calculate current upkeep requirements. But yeah, I guess we could do a typical ability build new game state. So calculate typical capacity, and then there's some typical ways to do it. Yeah, I guess so. Maybe that works. And then use base inventory capacity and stuff like that from the template, maybe. I don't know. It could work, I guess. One thing that must be said about typical ability build new game state is it actually has a bunch of things that are, I guess, edge cases in it. I've noticed that in the X2, there's certain things that exist in X2 ability that really feel like they shouldn't be in there in the first place, but for some reason they are. So I'm not sure I'm 100% sold on that as a way to do things. But I see your point. But yeah, I guess the calculate typical capacity could take I guess some of these standard cases in place. No, that does make sense. And then we can sort of branch out from it if we need it. The delegates don't really get counterattacks. Sorry, expand. You mean the ability for counterattacks? Anyway, I'm going to carry on while you catch up to me on that one. So anyway, I don't like next upkeep tick being tied like this. I need more upkeep sort of vectors, and then I need to know sort of what it's related to. So yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I mean. RoboJumper is just all these features that seem to end up with. But I guess that's more the fault of how it's used than necessarily the fault of how I do it. So, yeah, I think we can probably keep away from that sort of the worser points of it. So maybe the better thing to do is, I'm not going to spend too much on tonight, but maybe the thing is to just start making some of those delegates and then make some decisions based on that. Just start laying out information that's needed and how I'm going to deal with that. The exciting thing is once I sort of handle this, then we've got a lot of scope to build our system. Because I've got pathfinding there, so just got to just gotta go. All right. Anyway, so the template. What things do we got? New game state delegate. Too complicated. All right. So calculate capacity delegate. Yeah. Inventory capacity delegate. And that's, I suppose, gonna get the XCOM game state. Sorry, not XCOM game state. It's gonna get global resistance game state strategy asset. And I guess a lot of these, if they go down this line, yeah, traversal types. There's all these sorts of things, and like to an extent, I don't want to disappear. I use this expression a lot, like disappearing up my own ass in terms of trying to abstract away everything. But there's certain things that do need to be abstracted, and I need to sort that out. I don't even know the correct way I'm going to calculate which type of ground I'm on. But what I'd love to do is eventually like have some clear indications of what is mountainous terrain and what is forest terrain and stuff like that. Because mainly because that stuff is actually quite essential to the guerrilla experience in terms of like fighting on favorable ground versus unfavorable ground and that sort of stuff. Anyway, carrying on. So, the whole point is, yeah, they could use Cygates, but they need to transport stuff, otherwise it just wouldn't work. All right. So I think there's some concepts that I need to have in here as well. In terms of storage of information. You reckon we could do that? Because I'd be totally down for that. Like that would make content editing really, really easy. Yeah, just have one texture and just smash it on and say, hey, direct, like, because they already use the meshes to determine whether something is in a region or not. So I guess it's the same sort of methodology, isn't it? All right, hang on. Let me give a book. I wrote a bunch of stuff down. Alrighty. So, obstructive strategy asset upkeep. It has a concept of cost. Now, cost is something that requires it's an array of artifact costs. So, array artifact costs. And I'm going to be honest and say that, like, we probably end up with a pretty massive game state after I do all this sort of stuff, but I think it's something that I'm just going to have to wear, and we'll see how we go. Game's turn-based, isn't it? All right. Okay, so penalties. So I've got an array of names for upkeep penalties, so I'm thinking they're going to end up in some sort of like penalties are going to be some sort of I guess, grab bag of things that you can apply. So that penalty could be applied, and those penalties can then get applied post any of these delegates running, maybe, or something like that, so that those penalties can apply. Like, oh, you're right, we need to bring the inventory capacity down. Oh, we need to do this. So, like, the upkeep penalties will likely be a type of template. Right, int upkeep frequency. What else we got? Next tick. Now, how does date time work in this world? Because I haven't played enough with it yet. T date time. Where is T-date time defined? It's probably XG game data, isn't it? Or is T-date time an Unreal script thing? Must be. Oh no, there we go. 7:30. Oops. Struct. Where did the struct go? I fat fingered the wrong buttons. Gimme. Hang on. Just go struct. There it is. Okay. Righto, so it's just a collection of float, int. Righto. Cool. Oh yeah, that's cool. I was just looking for. Oh yeah, cool. I'll keep that in mind. I'm not doing any of that sort of stuff. I'm not going to try and jump down that rabbit hole tonight. I will be just not sure what I'm doing. Anyway, T-date time. Next tick. So upkeep will be paid when it's required. So like if a upkeep tick comes up, you either pay it. So you either pay it immediately, and that'll keep you good until the next tick comes. And if it's not good enough, then you'll suffer one of the penalties. All of them get applied at once, and then upkeep penalties will have some sort of severity. So if you have a lot of if you have upkeep penalties in place, then the only way to remove them is to pay the upkeep, and then you'll get rid of them. And the only way you can and as if you hold onto that penalty for longer, then you suffer more issues. Anyway, so an upkeep penalty will have upkeep ID. So the source upkeep ID, name, penalty type, what's it called? T-date time. penalty start time. So the idea is every time the penalty ticks, then it's just sort of, okay, how long, like how bad is it, and then it checks it out, like decides how bad the penalty would be, and that might be some sort of morale drop, or it could mean that capacity is reduced until a certain time, or like there's a whole range of reasons. So that's what the upkeep penalty will be, and that will reference a upkeep template. Sorry, an upkeep penalty template or something like that, I think. Sing out if you think I'm making any horrible mistakes, because to be honest, I am making this up as I go along. All right, strategy, asset, upkeep. Calculate upkeep of the asset. Okay, what else do we do? The upkeep contains the penalty names, so that's all good. The upkeep ID, just to be clear, it's just so that whenever you calculate upkeep, you know if it's adding new stuff, and it knows what the old stuff is as well, because that's important, because like this is going to be running, but it's going to have the old information, and it's got to know when not to overwrite the old information, the old structs. But maybe we can have some sort of merge function instead of having to manually write that code. So it's like, oh, this looks exactly like this, so don't update this sort of stuff. And then the strategy asset upkeep penalty, that's got to know which upkeep it's relying on, so that when you do eventually pay this upkeep, it knows which penalties to remove. It actually isn't Tizano. This is actually mechanics I'm making rather than anything like that. Like essentially it's more Unreal Ed sort of stuff, but essentially it's like trying to figure out an economic model that will represent this. So I'll just copy paste that link so that you can look at it if you want. But basically, like I want to be able to like this the pathfinding that I'm talking about is to represent an economic model. I want that system because I don't want this, like I want this to behave more like a simulation, I guess. And like this is sort of what I like mean by why, like how I've crystallized what it is that I want to do with this mod. Because the honest truth is like if I wanted to out long war, I wouldn't bother. But I really don't want to do that. Really, what my objective is about making something that's sort of a bit more like original XCOM in terms of it being a simulation, you being part of a world, and you being given lots of time to explore that. And like, I mean, it's still punishing. It can still be punishing, but the whole point is you're more in a system, which allows you to possibly like the players to make their own stories rather than the controlled narrative of the existing XCOM 2, or like the potentially crushing failure states of Long War 2, which, I mean, it still has a fairly strong idea of what you're meant to do and how you're meant to play. It's not a canvas. So yeah, like I think like building a good system that sort of manages all of this stuff is sort of key to all that. Anyway, let's keep going. I need a concept of production. Yeah, this is exactly speaking to what I'm talking about, RoboJumper. It's like, yes, you have choice, but you still have an extremely narrow latitude within which to exercise that choice. And that, I mean, that's the design of the game, and some people really get into that. And it's just like, you know, some people really get into what Long War is, and original XCOM 2. Like, I'm totally into that. I totally get that. Like, design intent is everything. Like, you can't evaluate design without evaluating, like, unless you understand where the design intent is coming from. And, you know, a lot of people come to Long War for that. But I think all of these things draw you further and further away from the kind of game that allows the player to feel like they don't need to restart after 1 month all the time. It draws them away from the kind of just it draws them away from like just experiencing the game and just Iron Manning it because it's fun to Iron Man it because you can wear all of your decisions. Like if a game is too punishing, you can't actually Iron Man it and live with your decisions, because what really happens is you make a big mistake and then you die horribly, and then you just go, all right, well, I guess that's it for that. Anyway, so strategy, asset, structure definition. Structures are kind of complex at the moment, and I feel like maybe they shouldn't be. Instead, maybe they should just be little tags that let you know, okay, so if you've got these structures, then in the background you'll have these functions will just say, okay, so the production capacity of this structure, of this strategy asset is now this. So yeah, var name. Okay, so like an actual production ID again has an input and an output. So at input and an output. So var input. So strategy asset production. Array of artifact cost, which is input. And var array now I had some sort of thing, surely I had some sort of storage parameter here that says what it's actually building. That'd be kind of a gross oversight if I forgot to put one of them in. Okay, so item template name and cycle quantity. So what I should probably do instead is say maybe be a bit broader, because it might have more than one sort of thing that can come out of it. Wonder how specific artifact cost is, because maybe I can use that as the production sort of thing as well. So if someone wanted to say, all right, when you produce with this, you get this and also one of these or something like that. So like potentially that's useful, because maybe you want it to have byproducts. Because yeah, it's just item template name and quantity. So yeah, we can go for that. We can just use artifact cost. Goodbye. All right. Yeah. So we'll just use array artifact cost for output. It's an inputs. And then build cycle time. Build frequency. Yeah, that'll do. Build time. And we're still using production, so let's go production time, and then next tick. I'll just go for a production ID in case it's important. I might not need that. I guess this is the thing about making data models, is you can only make so many assumptions before you start using it. It's sort of like in my web design work, we spend a lot of time trying to get the data model early. And when we get that data model, what we then try to do is take that data model and apply it to a content management system real quick. And the reason for that is because we want them to try and enter some content in pretty much ASAP, because that gives us a good means with which to expose any bad assumptions we've made. Yeah, we've got a good system, so we're able to do that. Like honestly, for most design things, I like to try and expose bad assumptions quickly. It's just unfortunate for this one that we've got a long way to go before we expose those design decisions, because that's just the nature of games and where you've got to get to even be able to say that. Anyway, so we need a delegate that calculates production. Input upkeep and penalties. Squad strategy asset derives its inventory capacity based on the amount of troops within it, whether they're using a vehicle. Yeah, so it's all of these kind of discussions that made me think templates have got to be the thing. Because otherwise, like, inventory is conditional based on its structure and unit count. It depends on the specifics of that type of strategy asset, and you're like, there's just too much there. Like, just make some simple delegate functions and call it a day. Some strategy assets can support structures with their own upkeep and production properties, and they can also contribute to inventory capacity, and then squad capacity, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so maybe that is enough. And then we have this concept of, like, so we look at X2 ability. I think this is the route that they've taken for a lot of it. Yeah, so like these things like concealment rules and like so much of this stuff is like, okay, here's what we'll do in the default case, and then you've got to force a few things. Like you've got all these things of here's what I'll do in the default case, but you can override all of that if you override the delegates, which is why the defaults exist in the first place. So yeah, maybe we do that same thing and just sort of stick to what we think is going to be sensible defaults. Alright, so base inventory capacity, base unit capacity, we'll keep them. The strategy asset structure definitions, I feel like they're too detailed. I don't want them. Like I don't like them. So I feel like they try to be too clever to reduce duplication. Like, try and do this so that you only have to keep track of build hours remaining and stuff like that. And I feel like that's just, like, it's over-engineering to the point where I'm like, do I really need to do that? So, let's just say that the standard thing is it just adds to unit capacity and inventory capacity, and everything else just sort of results out of it. It doesn't matter. Build cost, build requirements. And what I maybe do is we just go for, like, we've got this product definition. Yeah, and what we do instead of all of this is we have some simple structs for, like, upkeep definitions. So strategy asset upkeep definition. So we're able to do it if we really, really want to. We can just give it these upkeep definitions, and we'll use some typical calculate typical upkeep or calculate blah 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 blah, and we can pass it. Can delegates use super? Be nice if they did. We can put the function as a static, and then we're all sweet, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, we use those to sort of give us some baselines, and then we can go from there. So strategy asset upkeep definition. So this only does the costs. So I do artifact. I mean, it does most of these. It does these three. Does the two non-moving points. And strategy asset production definition. It's like these, but I'm gonna do this instead. Definition. So production time is there. Next completion and production ID not necessary. Oh no, we'll keep the up. Yeah, so we actually keep the upkeep ID. So literally the only thing that matters is that tick, but we're going for duplication because we believe that we may need to carry that information on rather than rely on these, or at least we want to be able to calculate it and morph it and use penalties to change it, and we just don't want to be locked into this data type if we go further on. Right. So strategy, asset, structure, definition. Okay. So now if we're exploring this, all right. So we're biting the bullet and we're just saying, all right, we actually are keeping all these things. So strategy, asset, upkeep, definition. So base upkeep. Array strategy production definition. Base production. Upkeep definition. Base upkeep for the strategy asset structure definition. Build cost, build requirements, strategy requirements. That's a technical thing, or a technology thing. Right, build cost, build hours, ongoing params, upkeep costs. Yep. So we're getting rid of him, and just keeping this like sort of very universal definition of these sorts of things. Yeah, we'll do that. All right, base unit capacity. Yeah, you're right. Typical is the way to go. Because I feel like this is feeling fairly normalized at this point. So we'll just go upkeep, production. I feel like the lack of namespacing, or at least how everything is in the same namespace, means I'm tending towards overly verbose names sometimes. I feel like I've got to try and stop it and maybe change global resistance down the GR, because I think it's just getting a bit too much. But anyway. My drink bottle. Oh, there it is. Has core structure. Yeah, I haven't really explored that yet, but that's something like, if we have all these different structures, then maybe you have some way to sort of build them on the site, but like they can be their objective in their own right. So maybe you've got this forge and it's got 2 extra buildings, and one of them builds sector pods, right? And you can't get to the forge, but you can get to the thing that manufactures the sector pods. So you blow that up because you want to keep that down. You want to keep that capability down. But anyway, right, speeds. All right. All right. Let's add some things there. Let me scroll up the. You put it somewhere. You're talking like ground, road, railroad, air, sea. Yeah, I wanna see if like maybe we give that sort of thing. Man, I'm not gonna get to mapping this soon enough. But anyway, like let's just spitball it for a bit, because it'd be nice to have it in there. this concept of like these things can move, and then in what ways can it move? Can it move by air? Can it move by road? Can it move by sea? Can it move in the jungle? Because that's the mountain. So yeah, ground, road, ground, jungle, ground, mountain. Because that kind of thing, as I said, is going to be critical to being able to hold some sort of defensive ground where you're like, okay, so we can move fairly quickly. So if we abandon the haven now, we can get away from them. We can relocate and fight the war another day. Like it's that kind of stuff that kept the Bielski Otriad running for a very, very long time in very unfavorable ground. It's because they knew the ground and they could relocate even if they held their ground. They were well set up to then move on somewhere else if they absolutely needed to. Anyway, where are we going with this? Upkeep definition, production definition. Parcel objective tags, upkeep hours. So all of this is going to go... Yeah, it's only unit... I don't even need that because technically they'll default to 0 anyway. And then we're able to build them here. So I just might look at my default templates and see how badly they do or do not match up with this. Default strategy assets. So we've got all these structures and all this stuff going on. Yeah, production def, base production capability. So I've got some of it in there. Okay. Let's call that production. Production. Production definition. Build cost, 400 supplies. Okay, all that seems reasonable for the moment. I'm getting rid of the word base. It's just, it is. It is what it is. Base. Undo. Base. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to just have to think through some of the defaults for this kind of stuff, I guess, and get the right upkeep definitions in place. I'm not going to hit into that just yet. I'm instead going to look really quickly into what makes up an item, because I need to make some resource types that are going to back this economic model. Like supplies, like x2 item template. X2 item, was it? Default resources. Yeah, there we go. Resources will be where it comes from. So we've got supplies, we've got intel, we've got twisted slag. I never remember seeing that. Alright, so there's really not a lot to doing this. Lovely. So let's make some now, hey? Yeah, let's do it. Resistance. X2 item. Expanded resources. Let's start it up. resource resistance. X2 item expanded resources. Intel faucet items. Facility lead item. Create the truth. I think internal names are just like the most. I love them. They're just great to look at. There's always a story behind them. Alright. Food. Max quantity. Alright. Let me see what that max quantity is about with supplies. Can be built, hide in inventory. Can be built. False. Right. Template dot can be built equals false. Template dot hide in inventory is true. Item category is resource. What other things have max quantities? Oh yeah, totally. It is time. But I still love internal names. I just love them. I want them to be a thing all over the place. Wonder what these max quantities are. Sorry, you're not looking at my screen. Like I'm just wondering. Yeah, for this, what are these max quantities? Do they even apply, or are they potentially old? Like Corpse Sectoid? Surely not. Corpse Berserker. Yeah, max quantity. Maybe it's Corpse. You don't even pick those up, do you? That might be whether the item state can be concatenated or not. Let's go for 100 and just stick with that. Give it a trading boast value of 1. Anyway, let's just make a few of these, which we know we'll need. I have made my decree, and I will call ammo munitions. Which the brain trust didn't come up with, but I'm going to call it that anyway. Yes. You might make those so they can be built. What else? There was a discussion on Discord about this. All right. What do you think? Conventional fuel. Does it become a resource or not? Because I'm pretty sure conventional fuel is a really important resource. Actually, come to think of it, maybe like I've already thought of a bunch of things with regards to Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid 5 materials. It is surprising to me that I have forgotten these, considering how much I stared at this game. I played the shit out of this game. What do we got? We got precious metals, minor metals, common metals, biological material, and fuel resources. Yeah, I think fuel is a thing. Like if we wanna model a few things, I reckon we create fuel, because that way you can like even if we don't render actual vehicles, we can give people vehicles and say, all right, like you can run these conventional vehicles as long as you've got fuel, and that makes it, yeah, it's an easy resource to understand. It's something that you can use. So conventional fuel, gasoline. Um, and I think the good thing about all of these is they potentially have some application to an actual city, so they can be part of its economy. Um, and in addition to medical supplies, maybe we need so supplies instead. Like supplies is more like construction material, I guess. Yeah, we got this biological material. Uh, Medical supplies. So our precious fuel is Illyrium. Our precious metal is alien alloys, and then supplies, like the generic supplies, is I guess the everything else that you can build all sorts of stuff with. That might not be too bad. And that way potentially we can balance off certain things. I think that's enough. I think that's enough for now. I don't want to go too crazy. Medical supplies is a nice one because I think it possibly provides some strategic opportunity to explore in terms of how it interacts with the city. So let's do these. Create conventional fuel, create medical supplies. Like all of those things. Well, munitions less so, but everything else makes sense in the sense of the world. Hang on. That's another way for food that implies drink. Is it provisions? Just quickly looking on another thing. Provisions, supplies of food. Yeah, let's do provisions instead. Because it's not just food. All right. I think that'll actually do me for tonight. I'm just like just a bit of exploration. But I think it was important because I'm at this next stage where I'm trying to set up the rest of this model so that I can get something play testable. I need the model there to do this, so it's important I have a good think of it, and I do appreciate you showing up and giving me some input. All right, I think I'll commit this, and better structure. Definition model for upkeep and production. Add resources, resource types for GR economy. Alright, that'll do me. Okie dokie. Thanks for coming by, and I'll see you next time.